Well, you can never say it's dull. Yet another October surprise in a season full of them. Less than 2 weeks before Election Day, the FBI revisits its investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails. We'll discuss just how big an impact this could have. Then, the polls were already tightening and Hillary's lead shrinking, but is there a secret Trump vote that isn't even indicated in the polls? Also, many Trump supporters are saying they'll start a revolution if the Donald loses. We're going to show you the alarming things some of them are saying and discuss whether Trump himself is fanning those flames. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French for Give the Voice here. It is just 11 days until Election Day and the FBI has just dropped a bombshell. Just a few hours ago, the director, James Comey, announced it is again investigating Hillary Clinton's emails. And the feds decided to revisit the case due to emails they discovered during their investigation into the Anthony Weiner sexting case. Just 11 days before the election, the announcement creating shockwaves. The FBI reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email use. Director Comey explaining in a letter to Congress, quote, in connection with an unrelated case, the FBI has learned of the existence of emails that appear to be pertinent to the investigation, end quote. This just months after the initial investigation into the former Secretary of State's use of a private email account and server was closed.
I see evidence of great carelessness, but I do not see evidence that is sufficient to establish that Secretary Clinton or those with whom she was corresponding both talked about classified information on email and knew when they did it, they were doing something that was against the law.
No comment yet from Clinton on the trail today in Iowa. Her running mate, Tim Kaine, only with this to say.
Comment on that FBI reopening the investigation.
Just got to read a little more.
While Donald Trump on a stage in New Hampshire wasted no time applauding the announcement.
I have great respect for the fact that the FBI and the Department of Justice are now willing to have the courage to right the horrible mistake that they made.
And this we got in just minutes ago. Clinton campaign chair John Podesta releasing the following statement, quote, it is extraordinary that we would see something like this just 11 days out from a presidential election. The director owes it to the American people to immediately provide the full details of what he is now examining. We are confident this will not produce any conclusions different from the one the FBI reached in July. Well, we've got a full panel to get into this. Shelley Mayer joins us, Democratic Assemblywoman representing Yonkers. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author. Michael Tobman, independent political consultant. Scott Vanderhoff, former 5-term Republican Rockland County executive and co-chairman of the Palisades Institute of Dominican College. And senior political correspondent Andrew Whitman. All right, I took a full breath for that one. We don't know what he's looking at. We don't know the implications it'll have, but we know that 11 days out is a really strong possibility, if not probability, that they won't finish this investigation before we count the votes for the next president of the United States. And the impact of this thing, I don't know which way it goes. The way we set up the show, but believe it or not, is we're going to get into the poll numbers, what numbers were real, what weren't they. But this throws this completely up in the ether. I've got a few attorneys here at the table. Can you make hide or hair of this at this point? Explain the process a little bit. I know we don't know the details yet, so I'm not asking you to extrapolate, but this much at least I'm clear on. The feds seemingly screwed up a little bit because when they were originally going through all of the investigation, it was just for Anthony Weiner and whether when he was doing the sexting or not, where it could have gone. They apparently didn't do complete due diligence on what was on that computer. Whether or not it was one that was shared with Huma Abedin, we're not positive. Whether or not there was any correspondence with her and anyone else, whether it be Secretary Clinton or anything else, we don't know. But nonetheless, now, 11 days from the election, they say, oh, never mind, we're not done yet?
I think process-wise, it is questionable. And I hold Comey in high regard, and I've said very complimentary things, and I don't take them back. I do think that at this moment in time, to give sort of a little tidbit, as he did in this letter, which says nothing other than, oh, by the way, you committee chairs in the Congress there's something more you should know, like a little titillation. I think he does owe it. I agree with Podesta. He owes it to the American people to say what he's talking about. I don't think this is common practice to sort of, in the course of an investigation, if you choose to reopen it, to let the committee chairs know. I don't think that is the way it is normally done by the FBI, and I would question whether this is the optimal way to do it, given not only it's an incredibly important issue, but we're 11 days out, as you said. So I think he owes the American people an explanation. None of us here know what he's talking about.
Dom, in terms of the next dominoes to fall here, if I'm the Clinton campaign, unless there's a bombshell in there that's going to basically sink the campaign, I'm doing what Podesta's doing, saying get it all out on the table. She didn't speak to this yet. She's in an Iowa campaign stop. She's not doing any stumping for this. She loses with silence at this point because it just feeds in all the worst possible narratives, assuming that there isn't some smoking gun in there, right? But even if there is, you can argue she's better saying, let's get some sunlight in here. Tell everybody what you're looking at. She can't win if everybody fills in, the blank here like it's Mad Libs with what they think is in these secret emails.
That's all she can do at this point. It's really, it just feels, 11 days before an election, because this has the potential to be a game changer. No mistake about it, all right? Trump already had a little bit of momentum, even though she's still up about 5 on the averages of polls. But he seems like he was getting a little bit of momentum, even though he wasn't going to win the election. This is going to give him life, Richard. Anything connected to Anthony Weiner, I'm sorry. He's a friend of mine, but it's bad news. And this plays into every scary scenario that the Clintons worried about 2 years ago. This is why they distanced Anthony Weiner, and it has come back to completely haunt them. So we don't know all, but we know it's a private computer. Private computer means private emails.
Can you imagine if Hillary wins and then it comes out that there was something there and they knew about it and just held off for 11 days to get through the election? That would be the revolution. Then the House, the Senate,
the whole rig comment.
It would be worse.
That's why it's better to get it out. The content,
yes, that's
the
why
substance.
That's why I don't question the
hint.
process of it. Did they find this out? Have they been deliberating? We're going to find out. Did they know about this 2 weeks ago and we're thinking we could hold off, and then saner voices prevailed and said, guys, if we hold on to this and there's something in there, and this whole thing is going to blow up.
That begs the question. I think you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
But if if it is classified, we're not going to find out anyway. Number one. Number two, he would not have risked this unless there was something there. Because his basic reasoning.
He couldn't put out there at least this.
Yes, at least that. Why would he come out and take the extraordinary measure of sending something to Congress at this point? There's got to be where there's smoke, there's fire, and of course, you're absolutely right, Dom. I think what happens is all those marginal people who are kind of going back and forth but really hated Trump for this reason, particularly women and millennials, what have you, I think this switches them. I think they stay home. I think they stay home, Shelley, and that will help Trump's people because they are out to get this.
And there was a note, Andrew, Paul Ryan, and this is a throwaway line, but he said he renews his objection that she receives the national security briefings and stuff. But for Republicans, I was thinking about this. They don't have to support Trump in the next 11 days. They can just go after Clinton, which in the end has the same net effect here. She becomes a rallying cry for a party desperate to find something right now because all they were doing was playing defense, running away from their standard bearer.
Well, I think the biggest impact that's going to have on the elections in 11 days is going to be on the congressional and Senate races, particularly the closest ones. I don't think this is going to have an overwhelming impact in the presidential race. It might be in marginal states, but the marginal states we're talking about right now are Georgia and Arizona. Not exactly states that Hillary Clinton needs to win in order to win the White House.
Unless, Andrew, what Michael said. If there's a sense out there that, wait a minute, am I voting for somebody who could be indicted, in late November? Is it possible that I'm going to be voting for somebody here who's going to have a full trial? Because I'm tired of it. Forget the 5 of 6 of us at the table here. There are people who are just tired of Washington and the Lewinsky gate, name a gate, you'll go on to it. They don't want to go through that. If they think what Scott said, there's smoke, there's fire, there's going to be some impeachment proceedings or whatever before she even gets sworn into office or something. My point is, they don't want to go through that again, maybe.
Well, yeah, but first of all, I think you run the risk of going through that with a President Trump. Just look at Trump Foundation, Trump University, Trump anything, and I think there's significant opportunity for investigations there. But let's be clear about what we have and what we don't have. They found more emails. They found more emails on Anthony Weiner's computer, we believe, that Huma Abedin also used. That's all we know. Comey notified Congress in part because I think he had to. Based on his previous testimony, I think he had to keep them in the loop if there was new evidence or new information. That's what they have. Have they gone through it yet? No. And even if they go through it, even if there's classified material on it, it has to be done with the intent to hide that classified material. That's the crux of what
It's
Comey
the
said.
drip, the WikiLeaks, the concerns about Foundation, it adds to the...
And again, so we're clear, this was not some new WikiLeaks discovery here. This was out of that. But the reason why I fear Andrew's wrong in this, if it was about Anthony Weiner, if it was about something, if it was about possibly, endangering the child, like there was the Dreyfus investigation of it, Comey would have said that. What he left out clearly makes it sound that this has a broader implication beyond Anthony Weiner. This has to go to the campaign. I'm not going to presuppose what that is because I have no idea here, but this certainly gets bigger here.
I just would interrupt you. I think that the great risk of his letter is it leads to what you just did, which is made a quantum leap from a letter that says, and I forget how...
He handled it differently. He's a smart guy.
He's under tremendous political pressure. We are leaving that out of this conversation. They have been beating the
Richard
out of this guy to make him back up from his speech with a finding of no
what
wrongdoing.
happened today was extraordinary. He already was being blamed by others.
Yeah, well,
but
he
now all of a sudden,
sort of
11 days
fixed it.
before the
So
election...
Shelley's point, he's protecting the FBI.
But
Yes.
Richard, I understand protecting the FBI, but the county exec, and you are correct. Do you think he would jump out there and put his neck on the line like this 11 days before an election unless there's something there?
Hold on.
I'm willing to bet that there's definitely something there.
Let's take the flip side of that. Let's say he didn't notify anybody, and 12 days from now, the day after the election, it comes out that the FBI found thousands of more emails.
That would be worse for them.
That would be worse for the FBI. It's a little bit of CYA on everybody's
Okay,
part.
do you acknowledge this, Andrew? Everybody right now is trying to read through that cryptic message he did for hidden meetings, right? It seems like a Dan Brown novel, okay?
Yeah.
But to that end, if he wanted to basically say that this was a clerical error on our part, we found emails that we hadn't checked through, he could have, without a lot of extrapolation, given an idea here. This is not a bombshell, everybody, but we found more stuff that we're duty-bound to report.
Well, I think,
I
I think that's what he did today. He said, he's duty-bound to report what he reported, and I don't think he could go into any additional details because then he's compromising another open investigation that he's got in the Weiner case.
I want to keep this conversation going. I got to take a quick break. When we come back here, we're going to talk about this revelation in context of those numbers that we mentioned before. Is the race really getting closer? Is it closer than it looks? What does the early voting already tell us? And there's been huge numbers of people who've already voted early in the states that allow it. Is it good or bad news for the woman in the red here or the guy in the red tie? We'll talk about that after this.